Hello, welcome to 70 Years, 70 Muppets, a Muppet fan podcast presented by toughpigs.com. This is the podcast where we celebrate the Muppets' 70th anniversary with 70 straight weeks of spotlights on our favorite Muppet characters, from the most popular to the most obscure. I am this week's host, Julia Gaskill, and the Muppet of the Week is Foo Foo, performed by Steve Whitmire and also Peter Linz in 2020, and designed by Rolly Crewson, making their world debut in 1979. So fun fact for y'all, on August 26th this month, it is going to be National Dog Day. That should be, I believe, 4 days after this episode airs. And something that some of you might know about me if you've listened to Fraggle Talk Classic or probably read some articles I've written on Tough Pigs, it's definitely come up multiple times. I work with dogs for a living. Since 2016, I walk dogs, I sit dogs, I have taken dogs to the groomers, to the vet, I do potty breaks, I check in, I basically just spend almost every waking second of my life with dogs. It makes for great background audio for podcasts, 100%. If you hear scuttling around behind me as I record, are there 3 dogs in the room with me right now? You tell me. But also, compared to the other podcasts I make appearances on, if there's going to be background noise coming from dogs, what better episode to do it on than this one, where I'm talking about maybe the most dog Muppet of them all, Foo Foo. It really felt like a no-brainer for me to take on this episode, since Foo Foo is just straight up a dog. Yes, Foo Foo's a Muppet. I mean, half the other half of the time, Foo Foo is a real dog. But Foo Foo does not speak. Foo Foo is the pet of Miss Piggy and is just a dog. That is, I think, the thing they are most well known for. And so I was like, yeah, I'm with dogs all the time. Of course I can talk about Foo Foo. This is really exciting. I'm going to delve into this character. We're going to get so in-depth on the character of Foo Foo. We're going to talk about all of our favorite Foo Foo moments, wait. Okay. I know. When Foo Foo's in the organization of Muppet Dogs in the Jim Henson Hour. You know, but also, she is just like in the corner of the table, and because she doesn't speak, she doesn't say anything, and she kind of just is cute, and that's really kind of it. So maybe not that one. I know. There's that great moment where they can't find Foo Foo, but she's just in the drawer in Miss Piggy's room, and then like they end up finding her, and it all works out, and that. That's not even really, it's really just more about Miss Piggy getting a pep talk. So yeah, Foo Foo's kind of like an afterthought. I guess there's like the moment where Foo Foo's barking at Kermit and he's in a wheelchair for a reason I can't remember and falls down the stairs, and I don't know. I know the Muppets are, they go all in on the violence, but that one feels maybe like a little too realistic to be a favorite moment. Well, what about the moment where Miss Piggy holds Foo Foo? Like almost every single time Foo Foo is on screen, Miss Piggy's just holding Foo Foo, and that's great, right? Right? Oh, okay. This isn't going as planned. Let me think. Okay, Foo Foo, dog, Foo Foo. Oh, dogs. I have dogs here, like I said. Okay, so impromptu guest. I'm gonna bring on a guest right now. So please, welcome to the microphone. Give it up for Atticus, the Boston Terrier. Okay, come here. Hold up. Oh. All right. Okay. All right. Atticus, welcome to 70 Years, 70 Muppets. All right, buddy. Can you tell me what you like about Foo Foo the dog? No, don't sniff me. Can speak into the microphone. No, that's the wrong direction, buddy. Oh, you mean to tell me you've been barking for the last 20 minutes and the second I get you on mic, you have absolutely nothing to say? Uh-huh. Okay. So much sniffing. Some smacking. Do you have a favorite Foo Foo moment? No? Nothing. Nothing whatsoever. All right, well, Atticus the dog, everybody. Thank you so much, Atticus. Okay. Okay, that didn't quite go as planned. All right, y'all. I gotta come clean. I gotta let y'all know the truth. I don't ever think about Foo Foo. It's sad to say, but unless Foo Foo is on the screen, she is not a Muppet that comes to the forefront of my mind when I'm thinking about the Muppets. There are 30, 40, 50 other Muppets I probably would name before Foo Foo. And like Foo Foo's not even the most memorable Muppet dog. I mean, you've got Afghan Hound, JoJo, Baskerville, all of the dogs from Dog City. Heck, I know that we're not even talking about Fraggle Rock or Sesame Street on 70 Years, 70 Muppets, but both of those shows 100% have more memorable dog characters than Foo Foo. And of course, we can't talk about Muppet dogs without Rolf, who is by far the most well-known and well-liked Muppet dog. You know, he makes the dog jokes, but also he plays the piano and he's really laid back and has a personality, which Foo Foo unfortunately doesn't really. I mean, she's got the personality of a small dog, which, you know, in person with a real small dog, that's great. On screen, when like every other character is a felted creature or an animal or a monster and they've got something big going for them, it just doesn't really hold my attention, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels that way. Maybe the most memorable thing about Foo Foo is that half the time she does get to be a real dog. They would shoot a real dog and then cut away, cut back, and suddenly it's a puppet. Or she'll duck under the screen, puppet pops up, or vice versa. And that's pretty cool, except, you know, we also get to see that with JoJo in the Jim Henson Hour, and honestly, JoJo is a more interesting character, so you know, Foo Foo doesn't even really have that for her. And speaking of Foo Foo's pronouns, I didn't even know what Foo Foo's gender was until I started researching her like 2 or 3 days ago. And like, as someone who works with dogs, let me be clear, misgendering a dog, unless you are breeding that dog or your dog has like issues with dogs of certain genders, because that is a real thing, it doesn't matter. Like when people apologize for misgendering a dog, I'm just like, it's fine. Gender's a construct, whatever. Anyway, so I'm kind of left grasping with what to say about Foo Foo. Well, okay. Let's look at it this way. Let's think about Foo Foo as who, what, where, when, and why. Let's try to dive into the character of Foo Foo asking those 5 questions. So let's ask the first question. Who is Foo Foo? Well, we know that Foo Foo is Miss Piggy's dog. That goes without saying at this point. With the exception of a couple scenes and moments like the organization of dogs, Foo Foo is always with Miss Piggy. They are not attached to the hip, but attached to the arm, the underarm, however Miss Piggy carries Foo Foo. She's almost always in Miss Piggy's arms or following along behind her. What's more, Foo Foo is definitely, unfortunately maybe, a bit more of an accessory for Miss Piggy. You know, she is essentially just kind of there to be carried and shown off, as often is the case with small, cute toy dogs. We know that Foo Foo is a toy poodle. She is modeled off of a real dog who was a toy poodle, a small poodle, and that is also the puppet form. And often those dogs get just carried around and shown off by, not to stereotype, but often like ladies that want to feel fancy. And that's kind of Foo Foo's whole purpose, is that Miss Piggy wants to be a classy, you know, high society lady, so she has an expensive little toy dog and just carries them around with her. I'm sure Miss Piggy loves Foo Foo very much. We get to see her talk to Foo Foo in the scene in The Muppet Show where she cannot find Foo Foo. She's really distraught. But more often than not, she's just being held by Miss Piggy and carried around. And, you know, that's just the life of some of the dogs. But I think maybe more of my disappointment is just not getting to see more Foo Foo in general and having more to go off of, I suppose. But yeah, that's who Foo Foo is. She is Miss Piggy's toy poodle. So that leads, I guess, into the next question of what is what is Foo Foo? And I'm looking at my notes and I'm seeing that it says toy poodle, puppet plus live dog, which we already got into in the Who. But I've had a dog barking in the background and had to restart so many times, I'm not gonna redo it. So what is Foo Foo? She is a toy poodle and also played by a puppet and a live dog. We also know from Raleigh Cruson in Below the Frame that the real life dog belonged to a prop lady who just trained the dog really well and was then able to have the dog be on screen. So that leads into the next question of where. Where is Foo Foo? Which I was asking myself quite a lot before recording this episode because racking my ADHD riddled brain, I could not for the life of me remember the last time I had seen Foo Foo. It felt like she had been absent from any Muppet productions for years. But this leads me into the when. When is Foo Foo? The height of us getting to see Foo Foo in any Muppet productions was really like 1990 or earlier. She was only in 4 episodes of The Muppet Show, which ultimately isn't very much when you think about it. Future Julia here, popping in to say that this fact is incorrect. She was in 7 episodes of The Muppet Show. My notes said 7. I don't know why I said 4. Back to the episode. And then she made appearances in some things like John Denver and the Muppets, A Christmas Together, Muppets Go to the Movie. She was in the wedding finale of Muppets Take Manhattan, which I'm surprised she wasn't in the dog kennel scene. That seems like a missed opportunity. You know, things like that up until about the time where we get Muppets at Walt Disney World. And then, you know, the Muppets in general went through a bit of a lull for all of the reasons that we know. But after that, you know, she's popped up over the years, but it really hasn't been all that much. She was in a total of 1 episode of Muppets Tonight. She was in episode 101, Michelle Pfeiffer's episode, and that was literally it. They brought her out, and then they put her away. Put her back in the kennel, I guess. And yeah, after that, like, not a whole lot. I mean, I will say she was in 4 episodes of the 2015 Muppets show, which didn't remember, but she apparently was there. I remember Gloria Estefan, don't remember Foo Foo. And she was in 1 episode of Muppets Now. She was in episode 5, and she was performed by Peter Linz at that point. And that's the last thing that she did in 2020. And yeah, not a whole lot in the scope. It really feels like a big thing that she did, like, at the, I guess the height of Foo Foo's popularity was appear with Miss Piggy in magazine photo shoots. She's in a lot of staged photos with Miss Piggy. And then just occasionally popping up in things. And that's kind of it, y'all. So finally we get to the why. Why Foo Foo? Why did they give Miss Piggy this toy poodle? The more I've thought about it in recording this episode, I guess the more I'm kind of glad that Foo Foo doesn't speak English. Like, it would be weird if Miss Piggy had a pet dog who she could have conversations with, right? It's, you know, people point out how it's weird that Mickey Mouse owns a dog and then his best friend is a dog. But, you know, it'd be wild if Pluto was having full-fledged conversations with Mickey. And I guess the same goes with Miss Piggy having conversations with Rolf while also holding Foo Foo. Like, it would feel off if Foo Foo could speak. So I have had that realization of, you know, her lack of a personality, of a character, of any speaking lines, it's very intentional. If anything, Foo Foo is really there to ground Miss Piggy, and I won't necessarily say give her more depth, but certainly make her seem more real. She is a woman of the world, and she owns a dog. She has this responsibility, and, you know, who knows how good of a dog owner she is off screen, but she does seem to truly care about her pup, and it just kind of adds another layer to Miss Piggy. It's really interesting the more I've thought about it. Miss Piggy is so successful and such a diva. She has an actual dog, and sometimes that dog is played by a real dog. Like, the Muppets got so big that their characters eventually cycled back to being living, breathing creatures. They went from felt to fur to just a real dog. And it's just I don't know, it's a fascinating thing to consider. Ultimately, I think it's okay that every Muppet character is not the center of attention. You know, we have dozens, hundreds of Muppet characters that we have met over the decades, over the last 70 years, and it's hard to give every single one of them a chance to shine. It's impossible. And in order to build a world that feels real and grounded, you need to have those characters that kind of do just stay in the background, or maybe just have the one-note joke that they do. Or, you know, are dogs that get carried around and sometimes maybe come a little bit into the plot, but usually are just there to, like, bark at Kermit, love Miss Piggy, and be adorable. And I think that that's okay. And I say this as someone that loves dogs. Like, yes, I would love to maybe get some more plot lines with Foo Foo, but at the same time, you know, as a dog lover, I've got Rolf. He's the greatest Muppet dog. No offense, Foo Foo. So that's who I can look at for my dog representation. I don't know. I almost feel like I've come fully around on Foo Foo. It's just nice to get to see a Muppet owning a dog and cherishing them. You know, even if they are just kind of a little bit of an accessory. Who hasn't carried a dog around just to show them off? I certainly have. Also, a very real in the moment realization I've had is I never need to see Foo Foo speak. I wouldn't mind maybe some more, I don't even know if it's substance, just more of Foo Foo in stories, or having moments to shine. But, you know, I don't know if she really needs to have a personality. I feel like I started this episode out kind of bummed that there wasn't more to say on her. And the thing I've talked myself into is realizing I don't think she really needs to do more than what she's doing. She's got a job, and she's doing it great. She's adorable. She gets carried around by Miss Piggy. She makes Miss Piggy happy, barks at Kermit sometimes, and that's all that we maybe really need. I do hope we get to see her more in the future, but I think it's okay that that's all that Foo Foo has to offer. And with that, I will say, Muppet dogs, real dogs, they're all good dogs. Every dog is good. Go pet a dog, y'all. Thank goodness for dogs.
70 Years, 70 Muppets is a Muppet fan podcast presented by toughpigs.com, hosted by a whole myriad of people and edited by them as well. Produced by Jared Fairclough. The Muppets 70 logo used with permission by the Muppet Studio with thanks to Danny Iglesias, Frank Reich Snyder and Lee Slaughter. Don't forget to follow toughpigs.com on all social media platforms. You can support us by heading to patreon.com/toughpigs or buying a t-shirt at tpublic.com/toughpigs.
And I think that that's kind of the why of Foo Foo, is she is not really there to be... You couldn't bark when I had you on the podcast 5 seconds ago, but now you gotta bark?